Okay, I believe people are still filing in, but we won't keep anyone waiting much longer. So hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to our presentation for today. I'm joined by Tanya Rose from the Newfoundland and Labrador Housing Corporation, and Allison Lair, who is the the program director, pardon, at the Center for Community Housing Transformation. We will begin our presentation very shortly. Just a bit of housekeeping before we do. This session is being recorded. The Q&A will be used in this meeting, so please refrain from unmuting. We will do a question and answer period at the end. All questions that perhaps go unanswered or need a bit more research before we answer them will be answered shortly in the coming days as we upload the video presentation and update the FAQ on our center's page. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Tanya Rose, who is the manager of the Affordable Rental Program for the Newfoundland and Labrador Housing Corporation. Tanya, over to you for a few words.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for attending today. I am the manager of Affordable Rental Housing, the program here at Newfoundland Labrador Housing. So our department is oversight of proposal calls, applicant screening, funding awards, and things like that related to the affordable rental housing program that we offer from time to time. The provincial government of Newfoundland and Labrador is committed, of course, to growing the community housing sector in this province in order to increase the supply of affordable rental housing in the province. So based on that, government has formed a partnership with CHTC to deliver the Community Housing Growth Fund that we'll talk about today. So a number of you I've already spoken to, either on phone or email, about this fund. It's going to aid nonprofit housing providers through to help them progress through basically the development process to help create those affordable options in the province. So CHTC will work with groups not only just to assist funding to cover eligible project costs related to anyone who does have a conditional funding approval from Newfoundland and Labrador Housing, but also with assisting groups with accessing other funding options that might be available outside of the corporation. So we certainly look forward to moving forward with this partnership and working together to help get those options out there. And that's it for me.
Thank you so much. And over to Allison Lair.
Okay. Thank you. JF, are you able to share the presentation, please?
Yes.
Thank you. My apologies, folks. As with technology nowadays, my Zoom on my desktop did not want to work, so I'm actually joining from my phone. So I'm going to rely on Jean-Francois to do the slides for me. So I just want to say that the Community Housing Transformation Centre is incredibly excited to be working with the Newfoundland and Labrador Housing Corporation on this project. We've experienced great success with the other community housing growth funds that we currently operate across Canada. We have a community housing growth fund in place in Nova Scotia, and that's been in place since 2022. And we also have a similar fund in Nunavut, the Nunalingi Pidaq Palarat Fund, which also offers a planning and pre-development stream of funding, which we'll get into a little bit more here. So if we can move along to the first slide. So the Community Housing Transformation Centre was founded in 2018. And it was founded to address a gap in fund provision that was identified in Canada. We have been in operation since 2018 and distribute funds all the way across Canada from coast to coast. We have a range of services that are available to folks within the non-profit housing sector, but also for folks who are interested in getting involved within the non-profit housing sector as well. Services such as a resource inventory, as well as an organizational compass. And then we have grants available across the country, which many of you have actually accessed within Newfoundland and Labrador before through the Sector Transformation Fund, local impact and sectoral impact. And we've had other grants available too, such as the Community-Based Tenant Initiative and the Green Kickstarter Fund. So the piece that you all came to hear about, the Community Housing Growth Fund is being launched in Newfoundland and Labrador. It's a commitment of $1.25 million from the Newfoundland and Labrador provincial government, and $250,000 has come into this from the Community Housing Transformation Centre. The intent of the Growth Fund in Newfoundland and Labrador is to develop a new financial resource which is aimed at supporting the non-profit, cooperative and Indigenous organisations within your province who are looking at developing community housing. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so within the Newfoundland and Labrador Community Housing Growth Fund, we are looking at the planning and pre-development stream of funding. So planning and pre-development, this was highlighted and has been highlighted across the country as a very much needed stream of funding for folks to be able to start the development of community housing. The planning and pre-development stream can be used in conjunction with other stackable streams of funding. And as Tanya mentioned earlier, it can be used with the some of the province's funding as well. We'll get a little bit into the eligible activities. Sorry, back one, JF. We'll get a little bit into the eligible activities. And that's, you may very well have seen on the press release, eligible activities are things such as engineers' reports, or geotechnical assessments, phase 1, phase 2 environmental site assessments, any of those activities that lead up to putting the shovel in the ground and getting construction started. So seed funding activities. In terms of who can apply, we're looking at the eligible applicants would be nonprofit housing providers, cooperative housing providers, nonprofit organizations, and Indigenous organizations as well. Moving on. So a little bit about the grant process here at the centre. This grant process has been in place and has operated really well for all of our streams of funding that we've been successful in delivering since 2018. And this graphic here just shows you a bit of a 360 of the granting process. So organizations are all encouraged to work with the centre from the get-go to ensure that your projects that you're applying for are eligible for funding, and that all of the activities that are included in there are eligible. By encouraging you to work with our program managers from the get-go, it makes sure that you're putting in the best application and we get you through the processes as smoothly as possible. So once an application comes into the centre, it's reviewed by a program manager who will go through it to ensure program eligibility, applicant eligibility, and that program manager will then do a first review of the application, which looks at the eligibility criteria, and will then go on to do an in-depth review of the application. And that in-depth review of the application looks at the financial need, the financial request, looks at the transformational impact, looks at the community impact, along with a variety of other things that you will see listed in the application guide, which will be up on our website shortly. It also looks at the demographics being served, the regions being served, and this is to ensure that we can have that geographically equitable distribution of funding. So when the program manager has taken a look at the application, I want you all to know that the application does not go into a black hole of applications, only to be seen on the other side with a response. The application, once it's reviewed, if the program manager has any questions, they will get back to you with those questions so that we can get the application to a point that it can be recommended to the selection committee for funding. And we'll get it onto the selection committee a little bit later. But once that in-depth review has been done and a recommendation for funding is made, then that goes to the director for verification of the recommendation and to ensure that all of the documentation is there. Once the verification has been made, it will then go to the selection committee, and the selection committee will vote for or against the project or the recommendation. Once all votes have been received by the selection committee, and if the selection committee votes in favour, it goes through to the contract signing stage. And once the contracts have been signed, or the contract has been signed, then it goes through into the implementation and the monitoring of the project. Next slide, please. So the priority areas for the Newfoundland and Labrador Community Housing Growth Fund, you can see them on the screen there. When you go through the application form, and I'll show you that in a little bit, you will be asked to choose which of these priority areas your project meets. I do want to say that you don't have to choose all of them. Only choose the ones that your project really does address. So if your project only addresses one or two of them, that is absolutely fine. If your project does genuinely address all 6 of them, then please feel free to check all 6 of them. And we'll move on, please, Jeff. Okay, so another part of the application form that you'll be asked to choose the check boxes for is the objectives. So here are the objectives that have been created for the applicants for your projects. Things such as obviously increasing the supply of affordable housing units. This is the main purpose of the Community Housing Growth Fund in your province. But also improving organisation ability to leverage existing funding, as I previously mentioned, with regards to stackable funding. Addressing the needs of underrepresented and marginalised communities, and building that internal organisational capacity, be it through ensuring that the board or staff are keenly involved in the projects and learning about the development processes, so that for next projects the board and staff will be better footed to kind of get moving on things faster and smoother. And as well as developing shareable resources related to construction of new affordable housing supply. I do want to say, when you choose objectives, you will be asked to report on these objectives. So again, with regards to when I mentioned earlier, with regards to the priorities, please only do choose objectives that your project meets or is looking to meet, because in the reporting process, you will be required to report back on all objectives that you do choose. And moving on. Okay, so how to apply. You would apply through our website, which is called Portico. The website address is community.centre, CENTRE.support. So community.centre.support. When you get onto this website, you will go to the little, you need to develop your organization first if you don't already have an organization on the website. So develop the organization first, fill in the organizational information, and make sure that you have folks listed on the on your organization who are not just the consultants. So if you have a consultant applying for your organization, please make sure that you have a staff person or a board member listed as a manager for the for the organization, so that if the consultant is only with you for this one project, you are then still able to get back in and add in other people to your organization moving forwards. So to apply, you would go to one applications. Oh, I'm getting a bit of feedback. Okay, good. To apply, you go to grant applications and you will select start a new application. So move on, please. So when you click to start a new application, you'll see a variety of different application forms will come up on the screen for you. This takes into account all of the different funds that are available across the country. So the sector transformation funds, local and sectoral, the Nova Scotia Community Housing Growth Funds, and the Nunavut Nunalinggi Pirak Palarat Fund will all be there. You'll find the Newfoundland and Labrador Community Housing Growth Fund is at the bottom of the page, as it's one of the it's our newest funding opportunity. So once you get to that, you choose that fund, and then it will take you along to the next page. So with regards to creating a new application, make sure that your application or your project title is something that is unique and identifying to you, but it doesn't necessarily need to have your organization's name in it. And it also shouldn't be super lengthy. So just something, for example, if you have a site identified, or the name of a building, or just anything really that is unique to your organization, and you would type that in there. There is a character limit in there, so it can't be super lengthy, but just try and keep it concise yet unique. And then up will come, once you've finished the name of it, the eligibility criteria. So you have to meet all of the following eligibility criteria in order to apply for funding through the Newfoundland Labrador Community Housing Growth Fund. So I'm going to leave that up there just for a little bit. I don't need to read it all through for you. Couple of things is the eligible organization type, the amount that you can apply for, when applications have to be received by, and when applications have to be, or when projects have to be completed by. You can see all that information there. A key piece is that the activities will help you help advance you through your housing development project. So once you've selected all of those eligibility criteria, it will take you into the application form in more detail. So this is what the priority areas will look like. You can see across the top there, there's a bar. When you're going through it, you can go backwards and forwards between the different numbered items there. So if you want to work on project impact and then shift to project budget and then back again to objectives, you can move around and it automatically saves for you. So the first piece is the priority areas, and in that, like I said, choose the ones that that do best represent the priority areas of your project. A key piece here is that when you're filling in this application form, please make sure it's specific to the activities that you want to complete with the funding that you receive through the Community Housing Growth Fund. So you obviously will have a bigger overall project to develop 60 units or develop a couple of duplexes or whatever that looks like, but you're applying the project description is the activities that you are applying for through this growth fund, such as I mentioned before, phase 1, phase 2 environmental site assessments, topographical analysis, things like that. So it should be specific to those activities, as should the priority areas and the objectives. So we move on, please. Okay. One of the questions that you'll be asked is with regards to partners and consultants. So both of these, similar idea. With regards to partners, do you require a partner? do you have sufficient internal resources and capacity to be able to carry out this work yourself? If you do require a partner, who are they going to be? What specific activities will they do? If you are working in community, have you engaged with community? Community is always a fantastic partner in the community housing sector. So will there be any key stakeholders within community? Will you be working with the government for additional funding? Are there any other government offices who will be providing funding for operational supports, things like that? All of those things should be listed in under partners. With regards to a consultant, will you require a consultant? If you do, who will they be? What will they do? If you require multiple consultants, then list them all and the activities that they're going to complete. We do require quotes from consultants. So if you are requesting 50,000, the amount should be clearly identified as to which consultant it's going to and in what amount it's going to them. Next slide. Thank you. So the objectives, needs, and outcomes. So as I spoke about before, there are the 5 objectives here. As I mentioned before, just choose the ones that are specific to your project, because in the reporting process, you will have to report back on how you've met these objectives, needs, and outcomes. So once you choose the objectives, up will pop up another box that has the needs. So what needs do you hope to meet? And what gaps will this project fill? And then underneath that, how are you going to know that your project is successful? And what will your milestones look like along the way? So this is where you'll outline your key deliverables and any of the processes you take to get to them. Next slide. And then to go into a little bit more depth, you'll go on to the timeline and activity section of the application form. In this timeline and activities, again, it should be specific to the activities that you're requesting funding for. We have the 3 different stages, or benchmarks as we call them. They are planning and initiation, execution, and closure. So include in those the primary activities that you're looking at completing. And in the comment section, you can include things such as who's going to be completing them, how it's like a natural progression from one into the next. So the comment section can just be used to provide further clarification around the activities that you list in the primary activity section. Each of the different benchmarks has the same layout with the primary activities and the comments, and the date should be sequential. So the end date of the planning and initiation stage, the start date of the execution stage should be the next day. So it goes on in a nice sequential pattern. Okay, so and then one of the other sections of the application form looks at the project impact. So first up will be the geographical scope. The geographical scope can either be provincial, it can be regional. And when you go on there, you'll find a map, and you can choose the area that you're focusing on, either by clicking on the map or by choosing on the drop down the geographical scope that you're going to be working on. You can go into a little bit more depth in a comments box with regards to if it's a specific neighborhood that you're working in, or if you're going to be working in a couple of different regions. You can also choose different municipalities in different regions there. So the size of the community, we focus on the urban like an urban center or rural. So looking at you'll be asked questions with regards to the size of the community, the different type of housing that is being targeted. So community housing, nonprofit, shelter or transitional housing, and on reserve. The demographics that are being targeted, again, this is an area where we've traditionally found that people will choose as many demographics as they can. Please do keep the demographics that you're choosing limited to the demographics who you'll actually be working with. So if you will only be working with seniors, then you should be choosing just the seniors. If you're going to be working with youth and young adults, then you can choose that. If you're going to be working with low income, you can choose that along with seniors. It's so just choosing the specific demographics that your project is targeting. Another piece of it is the knowledge sharing. The hope of all of the growth funds and the hope of the centres funding across the country is to increase the knowledge and the capacity of the community housing sector. And one of the ways that we know this can be done is through knowledge sharing. So some of the questions on the application form are specifically related to knowledge sharing. If you're going to be developing any resources related to the project, how you plan on sharing them. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we have the resource inventory at the centre, which we're always keen to add different resources to. So whether or not you'd be prepared to share some of those resources with the centre. And then how is your project going to be transformational? How is it going to be transformational for your organization? For example, if this is the first housing development that your organization has done, obviously that's incredibly transformational. If this is the first community housing that's being developed in your community, then again, that's incredibly transformational. So looking at how this project is transformational for your community or for your organization or for the community housing sector within Newfoundland and Labrador. We'll move on. Okay, so for the budget, sorry, my screen is way too small for me to be able to see this slide. I'm just going to have to pull it up on my my laptop.
While you do that, I'll just interject and welcome everyone joining us. I think there was a bit of a miscommunication with the start time, but fear not, the whole session has been recorded and will be provided to you later on this afternoon. And so you can catch up. Any questions that we missed during the Q&A process will be answered at the back end or later on as an updated FAQ on our website.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, so the budget. The budget will look at, the first thing is, what is the financial request from the Community Housing Growth Fund? So that's the amount that you are requesting to cover the specific activities that you've outlined in your application. Who will the other financial partners be? Will there be other financial partners for these activities? And that can be either approved funders, or if you've submitted applications to other funders and then just listing the status of those applications, if they've been submitted, if they've been reviewed, if they've been approved. The other grants available, so same idea there, whether they've been submitted or approved or they're in process. And then we move on to the revenue. So this is both internal and external. There is no expectation for the inclusion of in-kind. If you are looking at putting in-kind revenue in, that's wonderful. But like I said, there's no expectation of a certain percentage of in-kind revenue for this funding stream. And then looking at the project expenses. So project expenses include consultant fees. They include if there's mileage, and other, and then if you are looking at hiring somebody internally to do this project, it can't cover current operational overheads. But if this was the inclusion of a new position for this specific project, then it can cover that. Moving on, having a look at the administrative costs, the applications can include up to 10% for administrative costs so that would be up to $5,000 for admin costs. And then under the other piece, this can be oftentimes the other piece. We do find that certain expense lines get included in under other that should be under the admin costs, such as directors and officers liability insurance. So working with your program manager just to make sure that all of the pieces that are in the budget are in the correct place. I'm moving on, please. Okay. So one of the last pages you're going to get to is your contacts page. On your contacts page, you'll find the primary and secondary contacts, the accounting contact, and the 2 signers. So the primary and secondary contacts should be people who have a very good knowledge of the application. If you're working with a consultant, your consultant can be listed as one of the contacts. But the primary and secondary contacts should also include somebody from within the organization who we can get in touch with if there are any questions. The accounting contact is the person who we would be liaising with in order to ensure that the funding is coming out to you if there are any questions with regards to the banking transfers, because all of the funds that are distributed through the Community Housing Transformation Centre do get deposited directly through direct deposit with the organisation. And the 2 signers, these are people who need to have legal authority to bind the organisation with the funding agreement that will be signed for successful applicants. So making sure that these are people who is reflected in your bylaws or your policies and procedures as being legally allowed to bind your organisation to a funding agreement with the Community Housing Transformation Centre. And then this would be the last slide would be the last piece is the documentation piece. So for all applications, we do need to see a copy of your incorporation document or your letters patent, and then a void check, as well as your latest audited financial statement or board approved anticipated fiscal budget. So for newer organizations, if you don't have audited or reviewed financial statements, then we would require an anticipated fiscal budget from you, which has been approved by your board, along with the minutes from that board meeting that approve the anticipated fiscal budget. For applications under 25,000, we would just require the names and contact information of 2 references. And for applications over 25,000 and up to 50,000, we require 1 letter of reference. And that letter of reference shouldn't come from a consultant. It should come from somebody who has either worked with your organization in the past, or somebody who knows of your organization and the work that you do and your ability to complete the project as you're proposing it. So I mentioned earlier on that I would let you know a little bit about the selection committee. So one of the unique things about the growth funds is that we include selection committees on all of our funding streams. So the selection committees are made up of folks who are local to the area in which the growth fund is being offered. And in terms of the growth fund in Newfoundland and Labrador, the selection committee is going to be made up of 2 folks from Newfoundland and Labrador Housing Corporation, and then 2 folks from the community housing sector. So that way, by including the people who know the region well, they know the needs within the region, and it's taking a local view of the applications as they come in. Okay, so I think Kerry is on the call. Kerry Fleming is going to be the program manager for the Newfoundland and Labrador Community Housing Growth Fund. So if you have any questions, please get in touch with Kerry. Maybe JF, if you could just pull that last slide up one more time, just so people can have a little bit of a chance to jot down some information there. And then if you get in touch with Kerry, and she can help you get started on applications and ensure that the activities that you're applying for are eligible. And if you have any issues with the platform, thank you, Kerry, please get in touch with Kerry, and she can get you connected with our IT team, who are very adept at helping people maneuver their way through the platform. So I will turn it over back to Jean-Francois for the any questions.
There we go. Thank you, Alison, and thank you all for attending today. Once again, I need to apologize. I believe there was a bit of a technical mishap with our start time. However, today's session was recorded. We didn't get any questions yet coming through to the chat. If you do have questions, now is the time. I want to reiterate that the session today will be sent to all the participants, the video recording and the audio, as well as an updated FAQ later on. And I believe we can also, Alison, we have a question coming through if the slide deck can be offered online. I believe we can do that.
Yes, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, and a question here from Mylène Pivot. I hope I get that correctly. For studies, sometimes 2 studies would be undertaken simultaneously. Do we broaden the stage name and provide details in the comments? I believe that's for the initial registration of the application.
Yeah, so with the in terms of the benchmark section, if 2 different studies are going to be undertaken simultaneously, then you would include those in the execution stage. And then, like you said, just in the comment section, you can just expand on that a little bit more.
Great. We did get another question about the deadline. I believe the deadline is March 17th, 2025. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, that is the
reason behind that. That's when that gives us 2 weeks to ensure that payments are out by March 31st, 2025.
right. Someone also wanted us to go over the references again.
Yeah, so the references, so if it's under 25,000 or up to 25,000, you would just need to provide name and contact information of 2 references. And same idea, just 2 folks who we can get in touch with to see if same as a reference, kind of a reference check with a job application, but just 2 folks who we can get in touch with who can attest to your ability to undertake the project as you're proposing it. And then for a project over 50,000, we require you to submit, over 25,000, we require you to submit to us a reference letter.
And the total pool of funds, can we go over that once more? And we have a question of whether what the representation in the selected projects will be.
Okay, you just find. Sorry, can you just do one of the questions at a time?
Sure. So what is the total pool of funds, and will Newfoundland and Labrador get a fair representation in the selected projects?
Oh, so all of the funds that are through this growth fund are for Newfoundland and Labrador. This funding is specific to Newfoundland and Labrador. So the province has committed 1.25 million, and the centre has committed 250,000. And yes, Milan, it's a rolling intake. And I think I saw another question with regards to applications. So applications, the application portal is open now. So if you want, you can go online and start looking at the application. But as I did say at the beginning, please do make sure that you speak with Kerry before you submit an application, just to make sure that everything's lining up. Newfoundland-based organizations are, of course, eligible for the fund. Organizations outside of Newfoundland who are looking to develop in Newfoundland and Labrador can still apply. So the activities have to take place in Newfoundland and Labrador. If there is an organization in Newfoundland and Labrador who, for some reason, are looking to develop housing in Ontario, that wouldn't be eligible. So the activities have to take place in Newfoundland and Labrador.
We have a question as to whether out of province organizations can apply to this.
Yeah, so out of province can apply, but the activities need to be within the province of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Okay, I believe no more new questions. Will an extension be possible if the deadline is judged to be a little too tight for some organizations?
So the application deadline is March 17th, 2025, but the activities themselves can be wrapped up later, but the applications need to be in by March 17th, 2025.
Okay. I believe we've answered all of the questions. Maybe a final call for questions. We do want to thank Tanya Rose, the program manager for the affordable rental program for the Newfoundland and Labrador Housing Corporation, to join us today. Tanya, do you have any closing comments? Anything you want to add?
Thanks for such a great presentation. Glad that we had so many folks attend today. We're only, a couple of dozen short of who registered, so that's wonderful. And reminded everybody, the presentation, the FAQ, all the information will be sent by the center. So certainly take a review, and don't hesitate to reach out to Carrie. We're hoping to get lots of uptake and look forward to chatting with you. And thanks to you all for such a wonderful job. Great job, Allison.
Thanks, Tanya.
Great. So thank you all once again, and be on the lookout later on today or tomorrow for the full recording, and we'll attempt also to get you this transcription of today's presentation, and we will be updating the website linked in the comments with all your questions and the answers and further resources. Over to you, Allison, for our closing comments.
Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us today. We're really looking forward to seeing the success of this funding stream within your province. I know it's been incredibly well received in Nova Scotia and in Nunavut, and we're looking forward to seeing the impact it can have on the community housing sector in Newfoundland and Labrador as well. So enjoy the rest of your week, and we look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you all. Oh, Stéphane Rissard from the center, program director also. Here we go.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just looking at the comments. I don't know if people are still around, but if people still have some questions, I mean, we are available to stay longer. So I don't know if the recording is over, we can continue the recording, but I saw Kristen, I think, with the comment, if people came in late and you have any more questions, like we still have a few minutes.
Yes, definitely. And the recording is still going as well.
Okay. So if you guys want to, and also raise your hand if you want to speak live instead of typing.
Wendy, that's a really good question. So the local, the Sector Transformation Fund local projects will still be available. That's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. And the reason that will still be available is because in Nova Scotia, we don't have Sector Transformation Fund because we have the capacity building stream, which takes the place of the local impact for Sector Transformation Fund. So that will still be available within Newfoundland and Labrador. And I would also, I mean, Kerry will also be the program manager for the Sector Transformation Fund. So if there are areas that you want to work on in terms of capacity through the local impact stream of the Sector Transformation Fund, and then the planning and pre-development stream of the Community Housing Growth Fund, then that would be great.
Feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions.
So the community reps, actually, we are still looking at finding community representatives. So we're looking in terms of the community representation for the selection committees. We're looking at folks who have experience in planning and pre-development. So one of the key things we've found very helpful with the planning and pre-development selection committee in Nova Scotia is that the people who sit on that selection committee as the community representatives are very aware of processes, costs and things like that. So they provided a really good sounding board in terms of the project overall, if there have been potentially certain aspects that have been missed. So if you or somebody else you know would fit the criteria of the selection committee member for the planning and pre-development stream, please let me know, or actually please let Kerry know. One of the things that came up with as a concern with other groups is conflict of interest. And what we generally have is we have permanent members and we have floating members. So if a permanent member does have a conflict of interest, then they declare that and we pop somebody into their place on the selection committee as a floating member. So if you were a selection committee member, it doesn't mean that you can't apply for funding for your organization. You can still do so, but you obviously couldn't vote on that as a selection committee member.
We have a question here is, can this funding be combined with other funding streams and applied for pertaining to the same housing project? It might have been mentioned, but they were late in entering.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the priorities of this is to leverage additional funding. So but the hope is that groups will combine this with other funding, and it is stackable with other funding. Absolutely.
If I can add to this, is we know that CMHC has renewed seed funding program. And the growth fund initially in Nova Scotia was started to leverage seed funding, unfortunately at a time where the federal government ran out of funds. But now that funding is available, this will help you if you need to apply for CMHC seed funding and support your project further. So it is stackable.
Are there any other questions?
I believe that is it.
looks like me then has more updated information. So seed funding may no longer be available, but
The repayable loan, sorry, I hope it's okay that I muted myself. The repayable loan is not going away is what I heard. But the contribution, the forgivable loan item of it is now gone. It lasted 45 days. But the repayable loan is interest free, so it's still worth pursuing.
thank you for that. Yeah. And Megan, yes, I believe Jeff can correct me if I'm wrong, but there will be a link. You will receive an email after this if you've registered with a link to the recording.
Yes, hopefully by mid-afternoon today. So thank you all for your time today. We look to hearing from you. Don't hesitate if you got any questions. You can reach out to Carrie on our team, or a lot of the questions will be hopefully answered in the forthcoming email that will be sent out later today. Thank you all.
Thanks all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.